This reduce the cost of virtually all goods and services. It'll make the United States a manufacturing superpower and the world capital of artificial intelligence and crypto.
I mean, Bitcoin at a $2 trillion asset is quite significant, but I think most people are still asleep at the wheel. I think this very quickly in the coming year or two or four becomes a $5 trillion asset, if not more. So the geostrategic implications of this are quite massive. And I think if we look back at 20 years, one of the shining legacies of the Trump administration will be their embrace of Bitcoin and digital capital.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, it has definitely been an exciting week for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and yet if you listen to the sentiment, apparently there's people who are bearish right now. You have the Bitcoin maxis fighting with the XRP holders because of the crypto strategic stockpile instead of the Bitcoin strategic reserve. It's just really crazy stuff, and I just want to kind of clarify a lot of what's going on right now. First of all, if you just want to talk about the Bitcoin price action, we are still in a constructive pattern. You can see right here, even though we did get a lot of sell pressure, this high was actually higher than this high over here. And what we also did was we broke this downtrend, and you can see we retested multiple days as support right here, and now what we're doing is continuing the major uptrend, right? And it does actually look like we're consolidating. I would not be surprised to see a big move probably by Monday or Tuesday of the week as we begin. So there's definitely a lot to go over. I mean, if we have a look right here, you can see that as far as this constructive pattern is concerned, we had almost a perfect retest on this lower 89 moving average. And then since then, we've had the top of the band as support. Not to mention the fact that if we look down here, we also have a bit of an anchor wave followed by a trigger wave, right, on this momentum. And we are still in the green. So, this ultimately is telling me that we are still potentially in a good place. Not to mention, statistically, historically, February tends to be a green month for Bitcoin. February has only ever had 2 red months. Now, it's not the highest gains we've ever seen. Some of the higher gains tend to happen, in November or October. But on average, you see about a 15%. We have seen up to 61%. So ultimately, that's probably saying that we should be in for a potentially good, February leading into after this month, right? So that's probably something good to talk about. Also, if you guys are already, I can hear it. I did, it's kind of hidden by my beard, but I did wipe out on my bike. It was raining here in Florida. I thought it was a good idea to take out the bicycle, not bike. I'm not that cool. I don't ride a motorcycle or anything. And yeah, you can pretty much fill in the blanks. So sorry you guys have to look at that. I'll just try to grow the beard out so you don't see it. But anyway, talking about potentially where we could be. I mean, if you just look at these Bitcoin price after the halving, right? So we're just starting at the halvings, and we have the 2012, 2016, 2020, and the black here is the 24. I mean, you could see right now, for people getting bearish, for someone saying that we're close to the top, if you're just looking at the cycles, not talking about what's going on with politics or, Trump or anything like that, this is really not the time to start getting bearish, right? There's usually at least that one more push up. Now, yes, of course, we have diminishing returns. The first move was a lot larger, and then it gets a little smaller, so maybe we only come down somewhere around here, but even if we were to go up to like 180, 200, that would still be an incredible move for Bitcoin. And just to go over some of the things that have happened this week, and people are still not bullish, just to point it out, so far, what has Trump actually gone through with what he said? Well, he did free Ross Ulbricht, the Silk Road guy. He said he was going to do that. He did get out. They repealed SAB 121, which, by the way, I will go into exactly what that is and why it could be so explosive for Bitcoin. Established the digital asset, also including Bitcoin stockpile, right? Now, obviously, they haven't said anything about, the strategic reserve. They just said that they're going to hold the Bitcoin that they have on hand right now. But keep in mind, it's only been the first week. Let's be a little bit patient here. I'm sure there's a lot more to come, right? He said he will not allow a CBDC. Also, fire Gary Gensler, but he didn't have to do that because Gary resigned on his own. I think he knew what was coming. And also, the big news that Cynthia Lummis was talking about was that she has now become the chair of the Digital Assets Subcommittee. So that's just in the first week, okay? And there's even more I'm going to go into later. So, again, getting bearish right now, Seems a little crazy. I know that we're having some sideways choppy action, which is to be expected after, you break an all-time high. You usually don't just continue, going without that consolidation. People always want to sell, right? There's some redistribution that happens. So that's what I want to talk about today. Lots of interesting things going on. Also, guys, unfortunately, the $200,000 challenge is over for Blowfin, but they do still have their $10,000 deposit, which is going, if you guys obviously deposit and trade, you can get that money, you can trade with it, it's free money. If you lose it, doesn't matter, it was free. If you make gains, you get to keep those gains. So they're doing that. There's a $30,000 bonus also over on Femex, very, very friendly, non-KYC, $50,000 a day. I use both of these exchanges. And also, just to let you guys know, MetaSignals has a $3,000 cash back. This is no gimmicks, nothing like that. And it also comes with Eric Crown's Art of TA, the Jewel, and the Crown VMP Trading View Indicator. So you get all of this, and the value is $2,800 for just those perks alone. And you also get lifetime access to all of the signals forever. And eventually, you will also get an opportunity for a future STO down the line where you'll actually get some dividends paid back to you for holding the NFT. So it's a really interesting roadmap. Check all that below in the description if you are interested. So let's start here. You guys may have seen it probably by now, but this was officially the moment that Trump signed the crypto executive order.
It is.
Yeah, this is the crypto EO. We're going to be forming an internal working group to make America the world capital in crypto under your leadership.
Which is really going up, right?
Absolutely.
All right, David, that's for you. Thanks. You find them exciting? They might not be exciting, but they're going to make a lot of money for the country.
Thank you, sir.
And so is David.
We will make a lot of money for the country. I like the confidence in that, right? Also, you have $90 billion VanEck saying that the U.S. could reduce its national debt by 35% by establishing the Bitcoin reserve. Right now, Peter Schiff may have his opinion on that. However, I think at this point, it seems like this is the path to go. And we've seen other countries starting to dip their toes in the water as well. We've been talking about this, and it's one of those things where it's slowly, everyone's like, why isn't the price pumping? Well, because it's not quite caught on just yet. I mean, remember when the ETF launched, we were super bullish. What happened? It launched, and then the price crashed 30%. And everybody said, see, I told you, sell the news, it's priced in. Was it priced in? No, it was not priced in, right? You always have your short-term, sell the news, whatever. They're going to get out. They're just playing the markets up and down. But this is good long-term for Bitcoin. In fact, Michael Saylor released a framework for the USA to make $81 trillion by establishing a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And all these guys have been meeting in Mar-a-Lago with Trump, which, by the way, is actually like 20 minutes from my house, which is pretty crazy. Although it does suck because when I try to go to the beach, like all the roads are shut down because Trump's here. So it's like there's like police everywhere. So it's a little bit of a crazy time right now. I'm hoping that'll calm down a bit. But here's an example. We were talking about Florida, and I had spoke about my friend Samuel Arms. Well, we have Texas legislator Giovanni. He wrote taxes legislator. I think he meant to write Texas. But anyway, he says, I want Texas to have a strategic Bitcoin reserve first. So now you're kind of seeing like Florida and Texas and, maybe some of these other states, now competing to see who's going to be the first one to start putting it on their state balance sheets, right? So that could easily start happening before we even see anything on the federal end, right? And I think once one does it, it's kind of like everyone's like looking around, like kind of just waiting for the first person to go in the pool, kind of waiting for the first person to, take the plunge. And then that's when you'll kind of see everyone else like, okay, now, we got to get on board because we can't get left behind. And, don't forget, we have this newly appointed crypto czar, David Sachs. And I want to play this whole interview. I usually like to cut it up in commentary, but he talks about their main objectives, starting how they want to create regulatory clarity, the difference between commodity securities, stable coins, meme coins, etc. And I just think that if you watch this clip, you'll understand that just based on the tone of his voice, this is like nothing we were hearing last year for the last basically 4 years of Biden's presidency, where it was nothing But Elizabeth Warren's anti-crypto army, Gary Gensler sending Wells notices to everybody, every single person from the Democratic Party just slamming crypto left and right. And then today, these are the conversations that we're having.
So number one, market structure. We need to define what is a security, what's a commodity, what's a digital asset or collectible. So there's a few different categories here. So defining the market structure is important. Second area is stable coins. I think stable coins are a really interesting area. It gives us the opportunity to extend the dollar's dominance internationally. We can basically create a digital dollar that people all over the world will use. And then the third area that we're going to look at is we're evaluating this national stockpile for digital assets. We haven't created it yet, but we're going to study that issue.
So looking at the stockpile, haven't made the decision to go forward? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Yeah, we're going to evaluate that. We have not decided to do it yet. But we need to study that.
Is crypto an asset or a currency then?
Well, when you're talking about digital assets, it can be multiple things. I mean, you've got digital assets that are securities, you've got digital assets that are commodities, you've got digital assets that are collectibles like NFTs or meme coins. So, you're talking about a whole vast area of innovation. And so digital assets can be a number of different things. And that's why you need a clear regulatory framework that says, which areas are which. What are the definitions? And that's what founders need. Founders just need clarity around those definitions. They need to know what the rules of the road are so that they can abide by those rules and be confident that if they succeed in the United States, they're not going to get arbitrarily prosecuted.
So how far is the U.S. behind, do you believe, the rest of the world, and how fast will this help catch up?
We're going to catch up really fast. I mean, the innovation was starting to move offshore. There are places like Singapore, even places in Europe that were ahead of us. But now I think it's going to change very fast. Really, if you look at Silicon Valley and the technology industry in general, the U.S. leads in virtually every category, and crypto is one of the few exceptions. And I think that's going to be very, very quickly rectified because of President Trump's executive order today.
I want to get your take on the Trump coin, which started right before he took office. Are you concerned about a conflict of interest there?
I don't think so. I think the Trump coin is a collectible. Like I mentioned, there's different categories of digital assets. That's a collectible. It's like a baseball card or a stamp. People buy it because they want to commemorate something. So this is just my personal opinion. I'm not a regulator, but my personal opinion is that it's totally fine.
So I think there's no denying it that there obviously seems to be an interest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And, Trump says he wants to be the world leader. And he said multiple times, he can be a very, almost cocky person about it. But, he says winning is the most important thing, right? That's what he says, not my words. And if he wants to win, we're going to have to get these reserves going sooner than later, right? So I wouldn't be surprised. And there's a lot of people that say within the next 6 months, you're going to see something massive. Not near 6 months. That's a really long time from now. Well, it's not that long considering a 4-year-long presidency, right? But judging by the rate at which we've already accomplished so much in just the first week, I wouldn't be surprised if that also happens sooner, right? Now, the other big thing that a lot of people are not really paying attention to is this SAB 121 that has been rescinded. Now, what this does is it allows banks to essentially custody Bitcoin. Why? Well, first of all, if you don't even understand what it was, let me just allow Dylan LeClaire. He had been kind of talking about it. He was following it, and it was a very restrictive sort of thing that they had going, and it was designed purposefully to kind of make people, steer clear from crypto, right? To keep the banks kind of in the power with the money, with the dollars, stuff like that. But now I think they're realizing that they're not going to stop it, so they might as well embrace it.
SAP 121 is a massive deal. I think a lot of people are kind of in the camp of not really knowing what it was even. It sounds complicated, just the name, but essentially, if you were to design a rule or regulation to basically inhibit or cripple the asset class from the traditional, financial world, this is what it would be, right? Essentially, anytime a bank would have to custody Bitcoin on behalf of their clients, not for themselves, they'd have to hold, if you wanted to hold $100 of the bank, they would have to hold $100 of cash to insure against that, right? So it's you don't see this with stocks or any other asset class. So it was really designed to not let the banks and the traditional, financial institutions enter the space.
Right.
So I think we're kind of in a similar spot to where, the ETFs rolled out and people said, is this priced in? Is this not priced in? For me, it's quite clear, right? You can't price in billions, tens of billions of flows into the asset that haven't materialized yet.
Also, I like this. He banned the creation of a U.S. central bank digital currency. That thing had red flags all over it from day one.
Also, over on Neil Jacobs' podcast, they were discussing the influence of removing this as well, and how this could theoretically make the upside for Bitcoin unlimited.
And that is a major catalyst for Bitcoin. You know, I think that Bitcoin can probably get to 500,000 on its own without SAB 121 going away, but it's SAB 121 going away that really makes the upside unlimited, because you really do need to be able to borrow against your Bitcoin and not have to sell it to do the things you want to do in life in order for this asset to really explode. If, you know, perfect analogy would be homes, right? Like, what would home prices be if you couldn't get a mortgage against them?
And if that's not crazy enough, if you've been paying attention to what's been going over with Larry Fink and BlackRock, by the way, Larry Fink was over at the World Economic Forum. He was talking about how he believes we need to tokenize everything, right? So that is something that I think is going to end up happening. I'll get into something about Doge as well, the government efficiency Elon Musk thing in a minute. But you have BlackRock, which has $11 trillion under Bitcoin ETF. They filed for in-kind redemptions. 11 trillion BlackRock. Sorry, they don't have that much Bitcoin, not to my knowledge. I don't think that would be way too high. They'd be higher than the market cap. But anyway, long story short, they are filing for in-kind redemptions. So what does this mean? Well, up until now, yes, they had to buy the Bitcoin on the behalf of their clients. And yes, they had to hold the Bitcoin. However, their clients never had the opportunity to physically access the Bitcoin. It was cash in, they'd buy the Bitcoin and hold it. Then when you want to sell, cash out. But you never get any Bitcoin. So they always hold the Bitcoin for you. Now, if they're doing it for in-kind redemptions, that means that you could now, theoretically, now I don't know if they're going to start with the individuals. They might start with maybe like the brokerages first. I don't know if it's going to go straight to like the individuals, probably the family offices. But it does make me think that eventually this will be a point where you can buy Bitcoin with cash. They can hold it for you. And then, if you want to self-custody, or, you kind of start going down the rabbit hole and you go, hey, man, I don't think I want this in an ETF. I'm becoming a little bit more savvy. You want to self-custody, which I always recommend if you can. I know it can be a little scary. So that is a massive, massive thing, I believe, as well, right? Because up until this point, everything was cash settled and there wasn't even any Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Now there is Bitcoin in the reserves. And now after that, so part 3, you can actually withdraw that, or at least you will be able to. They've only just filed for this, but that's a very big thing as well. You know what else is also coming for everybody? That's right, guys, the money printer. Because like Marty Party pointed out right here, look at the M2 money supply and look at what we're starting to do, right? So what do you think is going to happen when the money printer turns on again? And, another thing too is Trump had been talking about how he believes, now I know, the Fed is technically not a federal and it has no reserve and it's outside of the government's really influence, right? They're their own thing. I'm not going to get into this creature of Jekyll Island. Read that book. You'll understand like how it's pretty ridiculous. Actually, the Federal Reserve is a pretty terrible institution. But Trump believes that he has influence over them. Now, Jerome Powell might feel differently, but if he did have some influence in the potential rate cuts, that could also do really a lot for things like stocks and Bitcoin as they continue to endlessly print the money, which, let's be honest, no matter who's president, they're just going to do that anyway, right? But, like Jack Mallers was saying, people are waking up to this like sort of dollar depreciation, and he says no man should work for what another man can print.
Really, for me, it's no man should work for what another man can print. And so I don't do dollars strictly out of just principle. Yeah. I will not live my life and contribute my time and energy for what another man can print.
So, even bigger than that, guys. And another thing too, if you've made it this far in the video, I should have said this in the beginning. I just want to exercise a bit of caution for like people who are heavy in altcoins. And I'll explain to you why I think this cycle may not be the same as the other cycles. So stick around, but I'm going to put that at the end of the video. But getting back to, we had Dylan LeClaire over here. There's rumors that several Middle Eastern countries may begin or have established significant Bitcoin stockpiles already.
Yeah, indeed. I think that, there's a 6-month period here to evaluate whether, a strategic Bitcoin reserve, or I guess broadly digital assets, is something the U.S. wants to do. And that would follow in the footsteps of Bhutan, El Salvador. And there are rumors of multiple Middle Eastern countries in the last, say, quarter, establishing a quite meaningful stockpile of Bitcoin. So, I think if the U.S. wants to remain dominant and, its world reserve currency status with open capital markets, embracing Bitcoin as an asset class and on the regulatory level is something that absolutely they should do. And that's what the administration is doing.
And probably the wildest part about this whole thing is that retail demand is arguably at some of the lowest levels that it has seen in 3 years, which means while all this is happening, all this good news, the potential countries buying and these banks, remember the Italian bank and all these different institutions and all these different companies and Meta even having conversations, with their shareholders of potentially holding Bitcoin, maybe following in the MicroStrategy footsteps, retail is not paying attention. Sentiment is low. And I can definitely tell you that this is not an indication of things to come bad. I actually think this is the Max Payne theory playing out, where a lot of the retail, maybe some of them got burned in FTX, or they got, they bought some scam coins or some meme coins, and, they're just like, I can't do this crypto thing. This is going to be that max point where once you get that 150, 180, 200,000 plus dollar Bitcoin, that's when you're going to see the FOMO come in. And that's what scares me and upsets me the most, is because even if those people had bought at the all-time high statistically, as long as you wait 4 years, you'll always do at least like a 3x. But why do they lose money? It's not because Bitcoin really lost value. It's because they bought high, they panicked, they sold low, they didn't have the conviction to hold long term. And really, these types of people should not be trading, right? You should be really just buying and holding. Well, either way, you should be buying and holding, not financial advice. But I mean, come on, that's been the best strategy. So, Coinbase CEO, he's over here saying it can go to multiple millions, and yet, where's retail?
Well, we have seen just incredible growth, and I think it hit an all-time high yesterday, so we feel very good about that. But I think over time, we'll see Bitcoin get into the millions, multiple millions price range. I mean, it's being adopted by more and more institutional customers. The ETFs brought in a huge amount of inflow. If we get clear legislation passed in the U.S., that would be a big milestone. A strategic Bitcoin reserve, if the U.S. took that path, probably the rest of the G20 would follow. In fact, I've discussed with a number of finance ministers here in Switzerland from different countries around the world, just the idea of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. They're getting more interested in it now because the U.S. is looking into it. So I think Bitcoin has a long way to go. It's going to be the new gold standard out there, and crypto is really much bigger than that too.
And again, that is what upsets me, because there still is that opportunity. Again, it's the same story that I've heard for years. $100,000 is way too expensive for Bitcoin. Okay, maybe for one Bitcoin for most people now, yes, I will admit, that's pretty unattainable unless you have an insane cash flow or you're selling things, or maybe you sell your house and buy Bitcoin. I don't know, something like that. But, I've heard the same story every single time. Bitcoin went up to 2,000. It fell down 300, right? Perfect opportunity. Then it went to 20,000. And everyone said it was too expensive, right? When it went back to 20,000, right? They didn't buy it. They said, I missed the boat. And then it went to 70,000. And people didn't want to buy because they said they missed the boat. And then 3 years later, it went up to literally just this week, 109,000. And we're not even done yet with this cycle yet. So it's really never too late. It's just about your time horizon and your perspective and what you're trying to get out of the markets. If you're trying to get 1,000x on a meme coin, good luck, okay? Because that's probably not going to happen unless you get extremely lucky or something. I've been in this space for almost 10 years, and I'm not even that kind of an insider. Like, for me to know, I'm going to get in on this thing early before it pumps. I mean, that's just not a common thing, and 99% of people are going to lose their money. But with Bitcoin, that's not the case, right? And one thing before we move on to the charts, I don't want this video to be crazy long. Elon Musk's Department of Doge efficiency, meets with public blockchain reps to evaluate their technology, according to Bloomberg. So that would be interesting, right? Wouldn't it be nice to see everything transparently on a blockchain? Can you imagine how easy it would be to fix this voting issue? All this voter fraud? Real simple. Vote on a blockchain. Everyone gets one vote. We can see it. It's all there. But that would be too transparent, right? Well, now things like this may actually become a possibility. So let's have a look at what's going on right now in the charts. Again, nothing too crazy, guys. Like I said, we broke this major downtrend. We had some nice support here, and we're consolidating. So, I would expect that this consolidation should lead to a move to the upside. It would shock me if we came back down here, The only thing is, of course, we do have this, CME futures gap way down here at 77. So, I'm still not ruling this out of the cards because it does have a very high percentage of filling, but also there really is no logic behind it filling outside of the fact that it's just a meme that fills 96% of the time, right? But again, this time could in fact be different. And, we do have constructive price action, which is pretty good in my opinion. As I showed you, if you look actually on the futures, we didn't have as clear of an anchor trigger, but we did have a nice double bottom right here, actually coinciding with the actual move itself, still holding above the major EMAs, right? Holding above the downtrend. Sorry, I showed you guys this earlier in the thing. This was the anchor trigger wave. Actually, if you want to just look up here, the next level, because, we're dancing around the old, go way back over here, the old 1.6108 at 102, between that area, the only next areas of resistance would be 135, and then you have the 2.618, which goes all the way back to the previous cycle, and that puts Bitcoin at 155. So I would say that there's a very good chance that we see between $135 and $155,000 Bitcoin before, I would really start panicking. But of course, I'd have to look at other indicators, maybe a little bit of sentiment, and assess that. But again, very constructive here. We have the moving averages, obviously from larger to smaller, and so far the lowest of the moving average, which is the 50, has been our support. So that's really good. I mean, back here, we had been dipping into some of these lower areas in this sideways chop, and yet thus far, which is hilarious that I can't even imagine people are like bearish right now. We're down like literally 5% from the all-time high, and people are freaking out, which is so funny to me. But, again, long-term trend is your friend. The trend is your friend until the end. As you guys know, long-term trend, we're going up. Probably coming up to here, short-term 125, maybe have a correction down back to 102, which is actually, that would be perfect because that would flip our resistance into support. And then I think we have one final push, and I think that's kind of maybe where, we get that top out. But it could overshoot it. I mean, you can get blow-off tops. Again, constructive moving average pattern. I don't really need. I mean, like, if you guys want me to like zoom into these micro patterns, it's not really worth it to me. I mean, I guess if you want to trade the 4 hour, yeah. Look, we're consolidating in a triangle. This is actually arguably this is like a perfect pennant. And considering that we have the momentum to the upside, I would assume we would break to the upside, unless there's some crazy stuff that comes out, or there could always be like a black swan. Now, this is what I wanted to talk about with the altcoins, guys. So this is the Ethereum versus Bitcoin chart, right? So it may have looked on paper like if you had been holding Ethereum all this time that you were making, gains on paper. There's like somebody literally screaming in my, okay, I don't know what that was. But yeah, my point I'm trying to make is you can see right here, since it actually peaked, now keep in mind, this is Ethereum versus Bitcoin, not versus the dollar. It is down 79% from its all-time high that it got way back here in June of 2017. So realistically, June of 2017 or February of 2018, if you had just sold your Bitcoin right here, or if you had sold your Ethereum for Bitcoin, Bitcoin would have outpaced Ethereum ever since. And actually, it broke below some of these levels. So I'm not bashing on Ethereum. I'm just saying that, people didn't want to hold Bitcoin because, Bitcoin's too expensive. Ethereum's much cheaper. Ethereum can go a lot higher, faster. Yeah, but comparative to Bitcoin, no, it hasn't. Bitcoin has outpaced it, right? And another thing that's also somewhat worrisome is this idea that there's just going to be this massive, alt season, right? Let me actually pull away from the chart for a second. The thing about this alt season is, when I was first trading in 2017, there was about 4,000 cryptocurrencies, right? And then in the next cycle, we got up to like 8,000 to 12,000. So it was starting to dilute it a bit, right? So if you have similar demand, but you have more supply, you have more options, you have more tokens, you have, all these different blockchains, then it becomes a little more sparse. Does anyone even know how many tokens we have now? I mean, can anyone even give me a number? It could be in the millions at this point. I mean, there are literally so many meme coins that come out every single day that the narrative changes, right? One day it's animals, the next day it's presidents, the next day it's fart coin, like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, there's too much. There's too many altcoins, there's too many meme coins, And therefore, that is going to dilute it's going to dilute Bitcoin too. I'm not going to lie. Like, some of the people that probably should be buying Bitcoin are not buying Bitcoin. They're buying literally fart coin or shit coin or whatever the hell. I don't really pay much attention to them. And yeah, that sucks. They're diluting it. They're probably going to lose their money. They're probably going to get burned. So it sucks for Bitcoin, but it sucks even more for altcoins, because there's always been this sort of separation between Bitcoin and everything else. And given the choice between a completely diluted altcoin market versus a super sound Bitcoin, which is just its own thing, you know, and again, I'm not being a maxi here. I'm being very honest and transparent. I just question if we're going to see the alt season the way that we used to, where just every single altcoin just pumps. I don't think there's enough money. I don't think there's definitely not enough liquidity, especially on these lower caps. So I just don't know if that's going to happen. And I would be careful if, you know, your strategy is just hold a bunch of altcoins and wait for alt season. You know, I don't know if that'll work. Not to mention the fact that if you do want to just go back to the charts here, this is the Bitcoin dominance, and this is a classic Adam and Eve pattern, okay? Adam, because he has the male part, and Eve has the female part. I think you can see why they call it that. And generally speaking, these are bullish patterns. So, you know, that could mean that Bitcoin dominance could come back up to 70%. And if Bitcoin dominance comes back up from around 58, I don't know if it's going to go that high, but if it does, you know, I mean, it does have some resistance at around 63. I guess I haven't really looked at this chart in a while, but I would really want to definitely get that exposure to Bitcoin. So again, not financial advice. Be careful out there. There are a lot of scams, a lot of memes, a lot of coins that are probably going to zero or close to. Bitcoin's always been the safe bet. You know, you can always do like 50% Bitcoin and then like 50% altcoins, you know, just to kind of break it down. I am like, I don't 98% Bitcoin. And then if I buy a couple ones, I put like 1 to 2%. If I lose it, I don't care. But if I do a 10x, well, then that 1% is now 10% of my portfolio, right? So that's just a way of looking at it. So again, guys, that's it for me. Remember, guys, if you want to check out Meta Signals, this is a trading, sort of like an indicator that I use in conjunction. You can use it in your trading, and they are doing a $3,000 cash back. You know, this is obviously, they say no gimmicks, no games, just cold hard USDT in your exchange wallet, because they are partnering with other exchanges as well. So this is like a legitimate, you know, I know you got to buy it with Ethereum, but you can get that money back. Plus you can get these 3 trading courses. And obviously they are limited. There is only 2,000 ever. And as of today, there's less than 900. So just letting you guys know that. You could join the free Discord if you want. Check it out, get some free signals. If you like what you see, you can join. If you don't, well, then, you know, it's free and no harm, no foul. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Take advantage of those bonuses below. We have the 10,000 FEMX, 30,000 FEMX, 10,000 Blowfin. And there's a few others, LevX as well. And if you guys want to trade, here's some tutorials. For the most part, all the exchanges are basically the same. If you can trade on one, you can trade on the other. So just, you know, check any of these out. It's basically the same. So that's it for me, guys. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.